Okay, week 2, we did the Pheasant Soft-Hackle. It's kind of a bigger soft-hackle. Trout, even still water stuff. So we'll hop right in. Again, we're putting a hot spot on this fly, and it's going to be a hot pink Veevus. You can tie the entire fly with this. I'm just going to use a regular thread that's on a bobbin, and I'll show you how to just add that hot spot at the end. So we're going to hop right in. I'm going to start my thread about an eye length behind the actual eye of the hook, because I want to leave room again for that hot spot and also for the collar. So we're going to take our thread just like always all the way back to the end of the shank, start of the bend, and that's where we're going to tie in our tail. Today this is a Uni-floss in red. You can take the color of your choosing. It doesn't have to be red. You could do green, you could do orange, pink, whatever you want really, which is nice. And I'm going to take that single strand and I'm going to fold it in half 3 times. I'm going to get a nice, a nice thick tail. And I'm just going to lay that down on there. It doesn't have to be pretty. We're going to trim this to length. So if you're going to err short or long, I would try to err long, because again we are going to trim it. Try to keep these somewhat in order. But again, it doesn't have to be pretty. I'm actually going to fold them back, wrap up, and then fold down over the top. So once we get our tails tied in, we're going to cut off the excess here. Let's make sure that's tied down nice and securely. Bring this back, bring our thread back to the tail. We're going to add our rib, which we're just going to use a Krystal Flash. This is kind of a green, blue, pearlescent. You can see some red in there sometimes. It's just a cool color. I like how it looks with the peacock body. So again, you can change this. You can use dyed peacock. You can change all these colors around. This is kind of like a soft-hackle Betsy special. But once we get our rib tied in, we're going to take 5 strands or 6 strands of peacock herl. Quite a few. Just makes it a little easier to get a nice full body on the fly. So I'm going to take those. I like to line the butts up close. They don't have to be perfect. I'm going to find the shortest feather here, because that's the one that's probably already broken. I'm going to break them off all even. And I'm going to capture those in right at the back here. Again, make sure you tie it in all the way to where those tips or those tails are. I don't want any bald spots. So tie those guys in. Got 1 straggler. Move our thread, again, about an 1.5 eye length back. I'm going to put a 1/2 hitch in, just because, and soak up some thread here. Now we're going to take all of these peacock herls and we're going to wrap them. And you'll notice as you do this, if your hands are far away, like down at the butts of these feathers, your peacock herl will want to spread apart and you'll get bare spots. So I try to grab pretty close to the hook shank, just so I can get a nice full body. And once I get there, I'm going to capture this with 2 wraps over the top of the peacock herl, fold them back, some wraps in front that go over each other, again to kind of lock everything in. And I'm going to turn this to cut it just so I get nice and close. So that's our body. Now we're going to take our ribbing and we're going to wrap it again in the opposite direction. Our ribbing usually goes in the opposite direction just so it cross wraps everything. And you want to get nice even spacing on these. I'm going to do a couple wraps at the end just so I can wrap over all of it with my thread. Make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And now we're ready for our collar, or our soft hackle. With these bigger flies, I tend to use pheasant from the rump area. If it's not quite as big, you can go further up the back, but you can get all sorts of different. You know, this one has less modeling on the feather, more iridescence. This one has more modeling. It really depends on what you want it to look like, and then also the size of the feather. So I'm going to check here. I'm going to set this here. I'm going to set the stem right where my thread is. And I want a little bit longer. Well, I'm going to go with that feather. I like that. So to prepare this, we don't need any of this fluffy stuff, so I'm going to separate that. Just like that. Get the tip in your fingers, and then you can pull on this fluffy stuff and it will go away. So to tie this in, I'm going to kind of do the opposite of what I just did. I'm going to pull everything back, but I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to tie in by the tip here. So there's a little V. I'm going to set that right on the side of my hook shank. I'm going to take a nice loose wrap. See how loose my thread is? Nice loose wrap. And then I'm going to pull straight down to capture that. I'm going to do 2 more, fold it back, 2 or 3, maybe 4 in front, and then I'm going to get rid of this tip here, and hopefully this won't pull out. Hopefully we tied it in strong enough. I think I did. So now I'm going to hold this stem straight up, and I'm going to pull these fibers back. See how they're all kind of going the same direction? If you do that a couple times and even roll your fingers around the stem, you can coax them to stay back. But every wrap, I'm going to pull those back. I want all of these fibers pointed towards the back of the fly. If you get a couple stragglers, don't worry about it, because we're actually going to wrap back over this for a little bit of durability. So now that I've run out of fibers, I only got like 2.5, 3 turns. That's all I need. Again, 2 over top, 2 or 3 in front to lock everything in. Cut that close, and then I'm going to preen all these back. I'm going to wrap back over all of it. And basically what that's doing is I am now protecting the stem of the feather, the part that will break, with thread. Since we're here, I'm gonna cut the tail, and I want it about the length of the hook gap. I don't need a huge tail on this, so I'm gonna kind of measure this, and with one cut, nice little tag tail, I'm gonna throw in a little whip finish here. And you can fish that as is. You don't have to put a hot spot on that if you don't want to. I think it looks good with a pink head. So I'm gonna, again, whip finish, cut my thread. I'm now gonna start this hot pink thread right at the eye. And all I'm gonna do is run up to the pheasant, back down again, and just build a little pink spot there. And then, just like before, do a little whip finish. Just a small one. You don't need a bunch. We are going to protect this with some resin, so it's not going to go anywhere. You don't have to, again, put the resin on there. I think it makes it look pretty cool. So you could fish that as is, but again, I'm going to take some thick resin. It helps build kind of that round head that I'm going for on this. And I'm just going to put a little blob on there. And again, if you don't have a rotary vise, that's okay. You can do all this without it. It just, I think it makes it easier. Put a couple more dabs on there. The nice thing about thick resin is it holds its shape better than a thin. It's not gonna soak into the materials as quickly. So I'm gonna manipulate some of these. And then I'm gonna hit it with the light. I don't know if that's showing up on camera, but the head really glows under UV, that fluorescent pink. But that is the Pheasant Soft-Hackle.